All right, so yeah, heads up. So what we're gonna do is just gonna do a little crash course in some really useful software that you guys might use as UX designers. Again, so much of your job is actually going to be interviewing users, but when it comes down to getting in front of the computer and starting to mock up ideas, I just want to give you guys a little crash course. And in this class, we're going to do a little bit of exercises. I know you guys don't like to go to Zoom meetings where you just lecture for 60 minutes. It's very boring. So I'm going to speak as little as I possibly can, and I'm going to give you guys a little bit of exercise in a few cool pieces of software you can use end to end. So all these different pieces of software are used, again, from the moment you got the idea about the project, or you know some ideas about the users, you can start mocking things up, and you can take it all the way to the project management itself, which is probably the most complex software that I'm going to share with you guys. So I'm going to share my screen. We're going to talk a little bit about stuff, but mostly we're going to be doing exercises. In those exercises, I'm going to be giving you guys a link. Usually you just click on the link and it'll go right to a web app, and you can do like a 5-minute exercise in the meeting. So it'll be really fun. And again, any recommendations you guys have, please, let me know or add it in the chat. Again, we're always trying to learn new things, and we're always looking to the future. So I'm going to share my screen for a bit, and I'm going to jump into my prez. Anyway, I hope you guys are doing well. We're doing good here. All right. So as I say, your digital design tools, this is the fun stuff. We're actually really lucky. Remember, going back 10 years or so, maybe even 15 years, people used to use like Photoshop. I mean, there's people nowadays who don't actually care about software, right? They say, oh, I love Photoshop. You can't criticize me for using it, but we're so blessed. We're so blessed, partly because of the internet, right? About in the last 10 years, we started developing web-based applications, which means that it doesn't matter if you're on Windows, you're on a Mac, you still have access to all the software, which is it's great for everyone. All right, so here's what I really think about when I think about software. When I actually sit down with another designer and I'm trying to talk to them about something, or we're going through mock-ups together, what I'm really looking for is speed. And I know it sounds very snooty, like let's go faster than each other. That's very shallow, right? But what I'm thinking is I want to know the expression of you as the designer. And if the software that you're using is getting in your way, then I kind of feel like you're kind of limiting your ability. So if we were doing a job interview or something like that, and I saw somebody working, and I would say, oh, they have at least 5 years experience or whatever, based purely on the speed. And I think that you guys can build up that speed very easily. It's just a matter of having a few projects, again, personal projects under your belt, and no problem. And one of the other things that I want to mention is, and we're very, very blessed. Again, going back 10 years, we all were sort of obsessed with Adobe. All the different Adobe apps, they tend to reuse keyboard shortcuts. But what I've noticed is that a lot of these modern apps that we're going to look at, they also reuse keyboard shortcuts. It's like the same keyboard shortcuts kind of get shared throughout the industry. So we're now in a kind of much better place than we were 10 years ago. So again, a little bit of experience and you'll be up and running. And again, if you jump between like XD or Figma or Sketch, these keyboard shortcuts will largely be the same. So you really shouldn't have any problem, picking up a few new tricks. As I say, speed is a very good indicator, not that you're fast, but that you have experience. And I can tell that you know how to use the software rather than you're speedy. So the first thing we're going to look at, and the first exercise we're going to jump into, is brainstorming the app. Now, one of the really cool things we can do, even though COVID is awful, it's a nightmare, but we're all working from home now. And one of the really cool things you can do is you can have a meeting with your fellow designers or fellow project managers. And you guys can all be in the same virtual space, and you can actually brainstorm as a group. So let's check out our first piece of software here. So as I said, this is probably the most important part of your job, right? It's interesting because when we think about design, we always think about these kind of beautiful interfaces and drop shadows and gradients and all these things. But the truth is that is really not that valuable. You can get anybody to do those UI jobs, right? but the real thing that the client is paying you for is the way you think in terms of the kind of big picture layout of the app and like laying out key features. So as I said, you'll use the following apps to broadly lay out and plan ideas. So let's look at the software that we use to kind of plan out the ideas. So this one I love and I kind of recommend it to everybody. It's called Whimsical. And again, I'm just falling in love with it because I've used a whole bunch of apps, and this one I just sort of, as soon as I started using it, I started enjoying it. I feel like the interface is great, and it'll basically allow you to sort of mock up a few ideas and even jump into wireframes. Now, one of the things that it does is it actually doesn't let you make very beautiful apps. It doesn't let you mess around with colors and drop shadows and all that stuff. It's almost like it's intentionally limiting you so that you focus on the features rather than just making it look good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump in here. I have a link here, and it should pull up on my screen. Oh, I see. I'm just sharing with a new app. So that's not it. Sorry. All right, so you guys should be able to see this, right? Weather exercise.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. So what you can see on the top left here, this is actually on my main controls. I'm just going to give you guys a little rundown, and then I'm going to share the links. You guys can jump in and do a quick exercise. This is combining a whole bunch of different apps. If you look at this purple button in the top left, it's kind of like my master control. If I click on it, it allows me to kind of back out and click, what section I want to get into. So the first one here says a flow chart, and you guys have probably seen these kind of like idea yes, these kind of blogs, they allow you to basically like start creating and controlling flows. This is mainly for idea generation and brainstorming. This one I don't use very much, but I think a project manager would use it. So this is actually kind of an awesome mode for a project manager. The next one here I'll mention here is the mind map. That was kind of like a little bit more logical. If you have a meeting here, and you can keep adding. If I zoom in here, you can see that I can actually keep, I keep adding more and more ideas. This is one way that some people might have like a lot of different brainstorming ideas, and so I can come from here and I can add a new one, and I can say other plan, and so forth. Okay, great. So the idea here is that you could have like different shoots of ideas. This is just like a brainstorming thing, and you could do it in groups. Now let's jump to the really good stuff. I know that the sticky notes here are wonderful. It basically allows me to, just the same way, allows me to brainstorm ideas. And if I go in here, this is allowing me to kind of quickly jot down ideas and then kind of bank them. And there's like an inventory. And I can even kind of move them back and forth. If I wanted to, I could create a new stack here, and I can kind of move these back and forth. But the really good stuff is I want to jump into this wireframe. So all this stuff is groovy, but as designers, we really care about this wireframe. So this is actually a simplified version of what you would consider like a modern app designer. And you come here, you have like a simple artboard. And it's like a standard Android or a standard phone. Obviously, you can do little labels here, but what you can do is you can come over here to the Elements portal, and you can actually include, these are all essential wireframe blocks, right? So these are buttons, and I come down here, I can see that the buttons are kind of customizable. You can do things like change colors, but really it has a built-in design system. So it's not letting you do too many crazy things. You can customize a few things like this, but it doesn't really want you to. It really wants you to focus on the ideas. So let me just look at a few of these. I have a rectangle, some buttons. I can drag a line across. I can annotate things. If I was say I was a client and I wanted to comment on your wireframe, that would be really groovy. You see here, there's a big photo, and you'll notice, oh, it's not just a kind of dummy MS Paint wannabe. It actually includes a lot of the features that we love about UX software. So this kind of like difference between the elements is I'm just holding the Option key and it's showing me the pixels. And you'll notice that, yeah, it just kind of goes up and down in 4 pixels. So it's very friendly and it's very modern, but it kind of gets out of your way in most places. Sorry, just one more thing here. I'm just going to scroll down and you'll see it has a lot of really groovy stuff, like obviously, other sort of HTML, CSS elements, text input like this. You can actually find that it's kind of because it's giving you a focus state or an error state or something like this. So it's actually a really cool interface to start building things. So what I'm going to do is, just to kind of get you guys a little bit familiar with the software, is if I come over here, I'm going to give you guys a little exercise. So this is an example of something I was doing later. So for example, in this case, I have a screen. This is a simple weather app. I'm going to give you guys a few minutes, maybe 5 or 10. I want to see if you guys can mock up this screen as a wireframe. So if I zoom in here, I have the text. I have maybe a kind of a square or a rounded square. Again, if I come over here, you might say, here's a rectangle. And you might kind of mess with it and say, oh, I can round the shape and so on like this, right? So this is just me reverse rationalizing this. This is essentially us learning the software by doing a simple mock-up. So I'm going to jump into the text box. Yeah, anybody who has this link, you can come in here and you can join. Obviously, it's all free. So I'm just going to go into my chat box and I'm going to drop this link. And if you guys can see it, please jump on it and jump in. You guys are all going to have a kind of color and a name in here. And I want to give you guys a few minutes to kind of play around with the software and try mocking up that weather screen. Let me know if you don't get it. Okay. Some people, right on. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Right, so this time I did this probably a couple months ago and I shared it with some people and I found that 3 screen was like a little bit too much work, but 1 screen was just enough to kind of, get a taste of it and kind of get a feel for the software.
Where do I get the tools to use here? I have a blank screen just with the weather app.
Is it possible? Can you scroll around a bit?
Scrolling.
Zoom out. You should be able to see
let me
it.
zoom out. I don't have that on the side. You know that menu bar you have on the left? I don't have it. Where do I get it?
You have to create an account to edit it.
Oh, I have to create an account.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah.
Okay, so I have to sign up. Okay. Thanks.
Again, one of the cool things you'll notice here, these kind of keys. So like making a rectangle is R, or making a button. So you're starting to learn some of these like keyboard shortcuts, which is really awesome. Maybe I'll.
Hi, excuse me. I was wondering, do you know where I can find the shapes?
Yeah, right. So if you click in the top left, you should be able to see this kind of big, yeah, there's a menu in the top left. And the
Right.
shapes are really in this second element where it says add element. Or you just hit the letter
Okay.
E and it should pop up. Right on, man. Again, you guys are you're probably noticing that you're being sort of intentionally limited by this software, right? That is intentional. You know, as soon as you start building out interfaces, you start to sort of get attached to them, and that's not what we want.
Oh, no, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I noticed some of you are using icons. That's pretty wild. One of the cool things that that Whimsical does is they build in these kind of cool icon set. So if you hit the letter X, it'll pop up with this icon search, and yeah, it's pretty groovy.
Excuse me.
Hey, what's up?
Where can I find a rectangle?
Yeah, right. So if I hit the letter E, if you hit the letter E, it's going to come up with this kind of elements list, and rectangle should be in there. And you could just click and drag, and then you can go in and mess around with the colors and all that.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Good job. Good job.
Hey, this is Binal. How do I layer the different elements? I'm trying to bring them forward and stack them, but it's not really telling me which element is getting selected.
Yeah, this is interesting. I always noticed. So, for example, if I just grab 2 rectangles here, and I'll do another one here. So if I select them both, I'm expecting that when I control click or right click on them with my mouse button, oh, sorry. Right, it's not control clicking, but just selecting them in general will pop up a unique menu. And you guys can see that this kind of left align and center align, it's like a custom menu. Can you see that? If you select 2 items and then there's a black menu that pops up on top.
Not really. I'm trying to just overlay some icons over the rectangles. So just trying to see how that works.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's the same thing. Sending something to the back. And actually, there's a
Yeah,
3-dot menu in the
yeah.
standard menu, and you can click on it, and it should say send to
Send to the back.
Yeah.
For some reason it didn't work for the icons for me. So I'll try that out.
Oh, sorry about
Anyways.
that. All right, you guys are doing really awesome. I'm going to jump into the next section, but you guys are more than happy to just keep working on there. It's fantastic. The goal was really just to kind of build up some confidence with this tool. And also remember, if I go up to the very top where the world icon is, I can click on that and I can share it with my client. I can allow my client to comment. For example, I can invite a client and say, you can't really do anything, but you can comment on my wireframes. That's exactly what designers want. You don't want clients messing around with stuff or breaking stuff. Or internally in your team, you can share it with developers and whoever you want. So this is a wonderful tool. Go nuts. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back in and go on to the next app. Sorry. Let me come here. I'm going to share this. All right, yeah, so whimsical, very groovy. There's another one that I mentioned here. It's called, sorry, I thought it was called Lino or something, but there's a few others of these are kind of like mock-up or these kind of like wireframe apps. But yeah, this freemium app is so convenient and it's wonderful. Now, of course, what you want, if you want, you can actually just export these as PNGs. And you can kind of drag them into another app if you want. You can drag them into Illustrator or another app. So don't worry, you're not limited by what you do in this app at all. All right, so the next thing we're going to look at is UI design. So this presumes that you've already shared this with, again, your marketing manager or your project manager or the CEO or the client, and they like it. They've approved it. Again, you can really impress the client if they can kind of approve features within Whimsical. That's a pretty cool feature. Now here, we're actually going to build out the kind of UI, what's it finally going to look like. And again, this is something that designers get a lot of credit for. Our portfolio looks very beautiful and that kind of thing. It's very important to us. So we got to get really comfortable working within this app. So this is essentially building components. What we really want is we want to build components for the developers so they can reuse as many components as possible. And yes, we're going to use Figma. Figma has a lot of advantages. It's based on the web, which means that anybody can use it. Obviously, it's free, which means that the more work you do within Figma, the better. And of course, all of the sharing elements that we just mentioned, you can do them all over with Figma. So what I have here is, I'm just going to jump into Figma, and maybe I'm just going to do a little bit of a demo. Getting a message from, yes, that works. All right, cool. So I'm getting a message here, and now what I've done is I just reproduced these same 3 screens. In this case, I have 3 screens, and I'm just doing a little dummy crash course in Figma. So Figma is borrowing a lot of tools from the world of Adobe, right? So have you guys ever heard of Sketch? It's a familiar app.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Heard of
right.
it,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Sketch is kind of like a wonder, right? When it first came out, everybody said, oh my God, Sketch is so friendly and easy to use, and I feel really fast when I use it. This was basically because Adobe had never built anything for digital designers. And we can all thank Sketch. They kind of broke through all of the Adobe tools, and Adobe ended up building XD because nobody wanted to use Illustrator for design. Or Photoshop for that matter. So this is pretty simple, right? We can build tools, and we don't really have to worry too much about layers or folders. If something is inside a group, you don't really have to unpack the group. Here's a group. If I want to, I can kind of, in Mac, I got a laptop here from Apple. I can actually just squiggle click, if that makes sense. So control click or squiggle click, you can actually click through an element that's in a group, rather than having to double click it to get inside. All the tools that you're looking for are on the right side here. Here's the stroke. Here's where you would put something like a drop shadow. Here's what you would do if you want to export the PNG or SVG or any other tools. Obviously, all the alignment stuff is shown right there. And one of the most important things you're going to do is you're going to be grouping elements together. That's because you're probably going to have hundreds and hundreds of elements on the screen. And so by grouping them, you can kind of move them around quicker. And the most important tool is essentially the relative spacing tool, right? So you'll notice there's a lot of red lines. If I hold on to the control button, you'll notice that these kind of automatically shift. And if I want to, I can just kind of use these little tool in the top right to shift click it, right? So a lot of this stuff is very familiar. You've probably used it a lot in PowerPoint and that kind of stuff. So it's all really wonderful. One of the tools that I did want to show you, and is kind of like famous, and it comes from the world of Sketch, is creating a component. So again, when you build out an app, you're probably going to be building out an app that has hundreds of screens, lots and lots of features, and you're going to have lots and lots of buttons and elements and so forth. The problem is, if you just build it out manually and then the designer or the client asks you to change it, you're kind of screwed, because you have to go back and manually change everything, right? So what we really want to get used to is we want these to actually be components. So if I right click on this, you'll see here there's an element here. It says create component, right? So this is probably one of the most key features of the app. If I create a component, that means that I can create multiple versions of this component, and they're all kind of a family. You can see here in the top left, there's like a diamond shape. There's like a full diamond shape and then an empty diamond shape, right? So the full diamond shape is the original version. And I might just type here original so you can see that. And these are all instances of the original version. So if I go back, I can actually change the color here, and they're all going to change together. So you can imagine what it would be like if I changed, 100 instances of this, module, and all I was doing was just changing the rounded rectangle, or changing the color, or updating the font, or updating the icons. All of this can be done in terms of components, which is fantastic. And one of the things that I might do here, sorry, I'm scrolling through here. One of the things that I might do here is I might use these. You can see my mouse cursor here. I might want to reproduce these as components, and then I could actually swap out the icon. So as long as the icons, this is a moon icon. If I had the moon, the sun, and the cloud each as components, then I could just kind of swap them out. And if I go looking for my, sorry, I'm zooming out here. So yeah, for example, if I wanted this to, if I just, sorry, control click on this, I can create a component here, control click on this, create a component here. And if I ever create a new instance, I should be able to update this and update to any other component in the system, right? So it just swaps it out. So that can live inside a component, and that can sort of allow you to customize things pretty easily. You can always come back here and update this version, and all the other components and instances will update. So what I want you guys to try, in very much the same way, I want you guys to jump into this one. I'm going to be sharing a link, and you guys can come in here, and I'll see how you guys can do. I'll give you guys about 5 to 10 minutes and see if you guys can use some of the tools that I've added here that is going to allow you to kind of mock up these 3 screens. And again, you'll start to get used to things like, alignment and, try to use components and maybe messing around with fonts and so forth. So I'm going to come up here. I see this M. This is me. Oh, sorry. I'm going to click share. Everybody who gets this can edit, which is great. Copy the link. And I'm just going to go back into my chat and copy that one. If you jump in, you can find it, and you should be available here to try to mock up these 3 weather screens. All right, I'm watching the screen to make sure everybody can edit. It's setting you as a view only, but I'll update it so that everybody has the power. Confusing. By the way, if some of you don't already have a Figma account, yeah, and setup should be very, very simple. There it is. So yeah, a couple of things you can do if you want to change the shape of a photo. One of the things you might do is you might double click on the photo and you can crop it, which means you can just force it to be like that one shape. You can just like say left, left, up, down, and just cut it. The other thing that you might do is you might take a rectangle and put it behind the image, and then you can actually mask it, which basically means that you're cropping it visually, but you're not damaging the photo. And you'll very often see this icon at the top of the screen, and you can do like that. And I'm just going to try it again. The icon at the top of the screen. So yeah, just make sure that your photo is in front, and then they kind of combine together. And you can say, yes, the photo at the top of the screen kind of looks like a moon shape or a crescent shape. And that will just mask your photo. And then you can put it directly into your image. And that's a very Adobe Illustrator move. So right on. Now Ryan just masked the shape. That looks good. And you'll notice that after you mask something, you can always click on the image again and kind of resize it. So you can kind of like zoom it in or change the size or position it left and right. You haven't actually damaged anything, so it's very convenient. All right, guys, 2 more minutes and I'm going to jump back in, but you guys can keep working, no problem. I'm just going to be talking in the background, no worries. Let's check the chat here. So I just want to comment a little bit on this process. This might feel a little bit clunky to you. And again, there's a lot of things that you're going to pick up, but you will get really fast at this. One of the things that I always recommend to young designers is pick your favorite application. Like take out your phone and show me your very favorite application. Go take a whole bunch of screenshots of it and then drop it, just drag and drop it right into Figma and see if you can reproduce those screens. I found this is an incredibly difficult application, like difficult application that you'll kind of learn all these little tiny things. You know, this is a powerful application, but it's not, you know, Adobe Illustrator. It's not Photoshop. And so you'll find that, you know, can I build this within the framework of Figma? And that's kind of like a really big challenge. That's one thing that's going to actually make you like really, really fast with this tool. And yes, it will happen. It will happen. Eventually, you are going to get really, really fast with this tool. You're never going to want to design in front of a client. That's not really something that people ask you to do. It's more important that you can talk about design and that you can, you know, listen to the client. That's important. You'll never have to kind of perform for the client. But generally, you know, when you say, I'm going to work on this for 2 hours, you want to work quickly. And, you know, these tools are all here to help you work as fast as possible. So this is awesome and keep it up, keep it up. So I'm going to jump back in here and I'm going to share a screen. We're going to do a little bit more on the presentation. So the next thing that I kind of want to share with you guys. I'm wondering why it's. All right, can you guys see my presentation?
No.
Not yet.
For some reason, I was not. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so we're going to jump into the next one. The next one is really interesting. It's basically prototyping. So, you know, when you think of the word prototype, we've probably heard this word a lot. What it really means is you have a cool design, and then I want to click through it. You know, so this is, again, something that you can share. Maybe you want to get approval from a client. Maybe you want to have some simple animations, or maybe you just want to demonstrate something in your portfolio and you want to say, hey, here's a thing that you can click through. You know, this is really, really common uses. Your client may want to request a clickable prototype. They might want to share it with their investors or their stakeholders. These are all, you know, terrific applications that is going to end up making your client happy, and it's going to make them feel that you are, you know, a terrific designer and a facilitator. So the one we always think about is Envision. And again, somebody mentioned to me, you know, Figma can do this itself. Actually, if you look at the top right of the screen, you'll notice that Figma already has some prototype tools. And I would recommend using those internally. If you want to share those with other people on your team, that's cool. But the problem is, if you're going to do something related to a client, you can't really expect them to use Figma, right, with their staff. So I like Envision because it's a very friendly way to interact with the client. And again, these kind of presentation skills will be really valuable to you in the future. So all you really do is you just drag and drop a few images and select the hot zones. So when I say hot zones, it basically means, sorry, when I say hot zones here, it basically means there are some aspects of the screen that are kind of clickable, and you guys can see this. So I'm gonna stop my sharing, and you guys can actually go out, and you guys can actually see my screenshot. I feel like I already did this. Anyway, you guys can see my web browser, I assume. So it says here there's like a weather app. So this is just an example of the app that you guys are working on right now. So if I click into the prototype, I should be able to see some, sorry, view the screen. So for example, this is a kind of clickable prototype. Can I zoom out a little bit? There we go, I can zoom out. And there are actually hot elements. So if I click on the screen, you can't really see anything, but here you can see there's some hot, yeah.
Are you sharing your screen right now?
We're getting there, we're getting there. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, so for example, this is just me using the app. So you can actually see if I click that, you can see there's some hot zones. Here's one right here, and there's one down here. So this is essentially a click and drag app. If I click here, it clicks to the right. If I click here, it should click to the left, which is, again, very simple animations. If I click on this one, it's going to take me to a kind of sub menu where I can select various locations. That sounds very good. I can click either of these and it'll take me back to that location. So here's Beijing. So very, very simple. And if you want, you can actually look at how I built this. If you look in here in the bottom left, you can see this kind of says Wither IMG. And essentially, if you just click and drag any PNG file, basically any image you want, into this folder, you can create these very easily, right? So I can click in here and I can go to the build mode, and all I have to do is just take a thing, say click and drag, and it says here, oh, if I click on this screen, it's going to take me to, you know, this screen, for example. And you can say, what happens? You said, well, I can tap on it, or I can single tap on it, or so forth, right? And then it's just asking me some very basic transitions. So this is not, you're not going to get a lot of beautiful transitions here. This is really just to kind of like share it with the client and kind of excite them about the project, right? By this point, you should already have a design language. You should already have colors and fonts and all the rest of it. And you want them to kind of impress their investors or their stakeholders or their own clients or whatever. So this is the kind of thing you could build for their clients and allow them to kind of like shop the app around, which is, again, it's a great way for them to, you know, maybe share it with beta testers and that kind of thing. And of course, as you might expect, just like Figma, just like the whimsical app, if I come down here, I actually have a comment mode. So I can click on here and I can say like, this doesn't really make sense. You know, this kind of stuff, right? So you can actually share this with them, with clients and their beta testers, and then, you know, come back in 2 days and you can get these comments. And, you know, you guys know how it works. You know, as you read these comments, you know, you can respond to them or you can resolve them or what have you. So again, these tools are really just here to kind of help you work together with a client and facilitate, you know, the big picture, which is really groovy. So if you guys want, you are free to, you know, start an Envision account. Obviously, all this is free. You can go back to Figma, click and drag your element and drag what you built into this app, and then, you know, build up a prototype. Now, I would say that doing this on my portfolio site, which is, I know what you guys are mainly thinking about, is a really big, you know, it's a really high priority, right? Do you want to build a video of your app, or do you want to build like a clickable version of your app? This is really groovy, right? So if I come down here, I can click share. Obviously, I can invite it with people. Or what I might do is I might want to share it on my own website. I believe you could do so. It says here, or share this project via a share link. You might do that on your own website. or you might just link back to this app. So these are all wonderful things that lots and lots of people have done. They'll create a case study, and at the very bottom of the case study, they'll link to this screen, and it will allow people to interact with the app. Again, it's a public space, so nobody's going to be able to update your work, of course. Wonderful, wonderful. So again, I know you guys can do that. Again, just shoot me a link after the class, and let me know if you have any questions about Envision, and I'll try to go and find those for you, because I know we don't really have a lot of time to do that yet, but I'm sure you guys can do it after class and kind of kick the tires, because it's actually a really friendly app. And I also found that again, as you kind of build more and more screens, I always found that Envision was really, really friendly. For example, you can actually just drag an updated PNG into Envision, and as long as the name matches, it will just update in the app itself. So like updating things and changing things is really, really convenient. All of your hot targets and all your buttons will still work. They'll just swap out the image, which is pretty wild. All right, so the last thing I'm going to talk about here is, I'm going to try to share my screen here. So the last thing I want to talk about here is probably the most important tool you'll find. And the reason I say that is because it's the one that you kind of live and breathe when you're working either at a place like Microsoft or maybe at a development studio or design studio. And these are project management tools. These are basically it's a safe place for you to interact with the client so that you can get your work done. Your client can give their feedback or critique or whatever. So it's kind of like the skeleton for the work that you do on the team. Now, project management is a very kind of geeky term, and frankly, it's not too bad. I think the software has gotten a lot better since, like 2005. I think there was a lot of tools like by Microsoft, like Microsoft Project. That was one that I saw it, and it looked extremely complex. And this is kind of like a modern version of that. So the tools that are coming to mind are the ones that we always use in the studio. So it allows you to communicate with staff members across a complex project. And it's really important to remember the project that you build will have lots of little tiny features. Either it's a feature or it's a little, an iteration on a feature, or it's a bug that somebody found. All of those should be in the app so that everybody can kind of resolve it and so forth. So this is the one that I always use, and Jira is a pretty terrific app. It's there's really no complaints about it other than the fact that it is complex. It's complex because you see a different part of the app depending on your role. So you could be a developer and you might see a little bit different version. You might be a client and you'll see like a different version of the app. And there's a lot of complexity therein, but it's pretty great. I think that once you start to learn it, you'll learn that it's actually pretty easy to use. Unfortunately, I can't really demonstrate it for you because it's a team application. But what I can do here is I can give you just an example of how this works. So on the left side, you have this kind of board layout. This is kind of like your main project view. Say every 2 weeks, your team is going to go through a series of tasks. Now, these tasks can be, again, as I said, they're main features, they're iterations on a feature, or they're bugs, which is, again, it's important, right? Resolve them. So on the board, you can see that all these are sort of assigned to one of the team members, which is great. What I am doing, though, is if I'm a developer or a designer, I'm usually working on something, and when it's ready, we're going to share it with the client, or we're going to just let the client know, okay, can you log in and can you check this out and can you see how it goes? That's usually how it goes, right? We're constantly building stuff, sharing with the client, getting their approval, and rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. You can see here on the right side, this is kind of every feature that we want. All the stuff that's at the top is in the current 2-week sprint or week-long sprint, or however you want to do it. And at the end of 2 weeks or a week or whatever, we're going to have a meeting with the client and we're going to present stuff to them. So if you've ever done project management, or somebody on the team is going to be kind of like the big speaker, that's the person who's going to be talking a lot in that meeting. If you scroll down, you can see the backlog and you kind of assume what that means. Essentially, we put it in order that we think is useful, but we can always reshuffle this and kind of bring stuff up as time goes on, right? The whole point of this project is to allow the team to iterate with time. So maybe something is really important in January, and then by the time we get to March, we realize, actually, we want to emphasize these other features, which is totally great. This is what it means to be flexible. This is a modern development studio. This is fantastic. Now, again, as I said, this is expensive software that your company is going to pay for. Can you practice it? Sort of, a little bit. You'll notice that a lot of these elements look familiar. Actually, if I go back to Whimsical, I can actually see many of these elements repeated over and over, right? Each element has a detailed state. You can kind of comment within the state. You can see at the bottom here, there's like a long comment reel. So much discussion happens within this app that happens outside of the email structure. And that's great, right? Because we don't want to lose anybody's comments. So this is where everybody does all their talking, all their commenting, and all their approving. So wonderful. If you are interested in learning it, or for example, you have time and you want to take a crash course in Jira, I highly recommend it. Unfortunately, Jira itself is not free. The next best thing that you can do is you can jump into Trello. Trello is also owned by the same company as Jira, and you can kind of see them as the consumer version of the same app. Trello was an acquisition, but it's essentially a consumer version of a very complex app. If you want, you can use Trello internally on your team, but as your clients get bigger and your company gets stronger, they will not let the clients use Trello. It's kind of too basic, and they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that. So it's an entry-level version of Jira that allows any member to work on their own project. And as you can imagine, if I just swap out my sharing here, maybe I can just do a quick zoom in here. Yeah, I thought I already had it set up here. Yeah, so you can see on my screen here, this is Trello. And if I can create these boards. This is usually the to-do board. And then, if the client approves something, then you can actually, swap it. You can drag it over here into the done column. And if I actually click on any one of these elements, oh, this is starting to look very familiar, right? So this is kind of what Atlassian, the owner, this is what they're thinking, right? It's like, we can teach people in Trello, and then when they move into Jira, they'll already know how to do everything. And so again, a lot of these icons, a lot of these layouts are all part of the same kind of design family, which is groovy. Again, all you're doing here is just commenting, and maybe you're just moving this to another project, or you're saying, oh, this is due on the 11th, and it will be, it'll be like an emergency or something like that. So check it out if you want to do a project on a team, or if you're a student or something like that. You guys are very, very happy just using Trello, no problem there. Again, it's the same thing. It allows you to share. If I wanted to come in here, I could actually just click on this, and you guys could jump in and work on it. But we don't have a project, so. But the idea is pretty simple here. So that's about it. I'm going to jump back here. I'm going to jump over to my, thank you. Yeah, as I said, so Trello is the kind of friendly version, which is wonderful. We love it. And again, I used Jira pretty much every single day for the last several years. And those workflows are very, very similar. And it's funny, some of the developers in our company, they don't actually like Jira. Everybody complains that it's too complex. So all I can say is you need that kind of complexity because of how much detail you get into. So you will learn it. It will come. You'll get there. Until then, just work on Trello and you'll be fine. The last thing I want to mention, and again, this is going to be a real quick one because I know the time is against us, is sharing tools. We use Trello to get approval from the client. Once we get approval, then we have one more job to do, and that is to share our work with the developer, right? So do you want developers using Sketch or XD? No, not really, because you don't want them to change any of your work. So what we do is we upload our work to a middleware, and this is called Zeppelin. It's been around for a while. You'll notice that the color scheme looks a lot like Sketch. Right? That's because Sketch was the king. And Zeppelin works with pretty much any app you can imagine. You can upload your work there. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to share so that you guys can see one example. So I'm going to, sorry that I'm jumping between apps here. So Zeppelin, I'm going to share right here. You guys can see it. If I go back, you can see this is kind of like my main window. Again, you can start a new app, no problem. Everything's free. You can create lots and lots of projects. I think there's a limit on a free account, but that's about it. So for a free account, you can come in here, you can create projects, and you can upload stuff. So what is the point, right? What is the point of this app? You can see that it looks like every time I upload a new screen, you can see here there's like a project. Every time I upload a new screen, it comes up here. This is for the developers. The developers want to look at this screen. If I click into one example here, you can see some stuff, right? You can see some stuff on the right. I have sizing, so it's like pixel height and width. These are maybe components that I've reused. I'm trying to get rid of all these. Sorry, stuff is taking over the screen. So for example, if I look here, I might see that some of these things are just like details. So you might say, okay, here's the shading element, here's the color. It'll look at various shapes and it'll outline how big they are in the background. I believe this is a component that I created and it's called Cloud Gray. And yeah, you can even go so far as to like get CSS values from all of these. Again, if I scroll down here, here's some CSS values that the developers can use and the text. So a lot of the things that you're doing here, you'll see here PNG, SVG. This is a very common thing that developers will say, please give me the PNGs. And this will just allow me to get all the PNGs right here from the app rather than asking my developer to, email them to me or something like that. So this is, yeah, the whole point of this is just to allow developers to start building what you got approved. And they don't want to work on your app because they don't want to change it. And they just want a nice clean version where everything is approved. So this is what you would use. And I think we're good here. So I'm just going to share one more time for Keynote. So yeah, in sum, I think we've done a bunch of this stuff. This is basically starting from the very beginning, mocking up new ideas, and then eventually skipping all the way over to getting it approved by the client or the stakeholder, and then finally giving it to a developer through Zeppelin. This is what we do. It's 9 to 5. It's a fantastic job. It's exciting. It's dynamic. And I hope you guys are gonna jump right in there. So I just mentioned here some homework. I wouldn't really call this homework, but I would really encourage you to think about some of the projects that you want to build, or maybe software that you want to redesign. If you look at your phone, again, what are your favorite apps, or what are your least favorite apps that you think could use a redesign? Can you move from whimsical all the way through the process, right? Now you can, absolutely. Again, whimsical is great because it just allows you to focus on features. Figma is great for all the kind of UI stuff. Envision will allow you to kind of kick the can, right? See how it feels to use. And Trello is just for teamwork. And then finally, Zeppelin is the way you're going to share it with your clients. That's still what we used in 2021. So you guys have all the tools at your disposal. Before we run off, do you guys have any quick questions? Sounds like you guys are happy. All right, guys.
I had a quick question.
Oh, please.
I was wondering, is there any way we can access this recording?
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'm going to put this on YouTube, so no worries. I'm going to actually link it up so you guys will always have access. So yeah, I'll add the link in a bit. I'll share it with you. Yeah, that's right. Thanks, man. All right.
Can we reach you if you have questions, or you have an email address you can put up here or something if we have like questions about the apps you put in, or?
Please. Yeah, as I say, you can add me on LinkedIn, or if you want to just email me, I'll give you my email in chat. But yeah, just add me on LinkedIn. You can message me anytime.
Okay, because I've used some of these apps, but some are kind of new to me. So
No worries. That's fantastic. That's awesome.
thank you.
Thanks. All right, guys. Thanks very much. Thanks for coming on a Sunday night. I know you guys are relaxing. Yeah, so over the next few days, maybe you guys can jump into these. And again, if you don't know where to start with your favorite app. See if you can reproduce it in, like I said, the Whimsical app or the Figma app. That's the first place you really want to learn the software. All right, guys.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for
Thank
coming,
you.
guys.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good time. Good night.
Thanks, Michael.
One more guys. Thank you.